Hey, look at that. I hit record right when you gave that beautiful smile.
Oh, thanks.
How you doing?
I'm great, dude. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's good to see you again. This is the third episode I'm having you on. We're going to cover some topics about astrology today. Pretty excited to see my chart, see how accurate it is. I'm going to be critical. I'm going to
Good.
I'm going to try to push this. I want to steel man it to make sure that it's real. So,
Yeah, you
I
want
and
to
I
hold
believe
me to
that
the
is real.
flames.
So is this human design or is this a different, and you'll maybe have to explain to me what exactly human design is, but what what is this reading that you have?
Yeah, when I do a full-on reading with someone, I'll do the astrological chart, and there's different systems for it. So I throw in some vibrational astrology interpretations, just as my modality, with medieval astrology understandings too. I'm getting really into that because a lot of new planets have been added that took rulership of things from other planets.
Yeah.
So I try to really work with that to get that older understanding because the older astrology was a bit more brutal, which was seems to be the type of astrology I'm moving into, almost astrology as a type of therapy and guidance and identifying things that can be a bit elusive energetically in people's lives. And then so I'll do that reading. This is with the Placidus house system. It's tropical astrology.
Okay.
Uh, and then because there's tropical, there's Vedic astrology, there's a bunch, but tropical and Vedic are your main ones that people are using. And the only difference is Vedic astrology is accounting for, since astrology's inception, the way that the star systems and constellations have shifted a few degrees.
Okay.
And so some things will fall within different signs and all of that, and there's different interpretations, other star systems observed. It takes a lot of inspiration from Indian culture too. And I really like Vedic too. I'm going to get more into it as probably towards the end of the year, but
Okay.
I'm really focused on tropical right now. It's been accurate for me and
Sure.
everything. I want to use Vedic later on, just in case there are things that aren't landing for me. I can get a little bit of a different interpretation. But so that, and then the human design, and then I have oracle cards, and human design, by the way, is based off of 3 Mercury rotations while you're in the womb, because it takes 88 days for Mercury to rotate. So altogether, that would be around that 9 month
Okay.
period.
Okay.
And the first rotation is it gets into your, what is it, your energy system, and then your personality on the next one, and then it's your soul actually coming in, stepping in, and embodying you. And I think that's interesting too, because before we recorded, you were talking about, we were talking about some stuff going on with abortion and all of that, and
Hmm.
how long is too long to wait and all that. And even astrologically, it's that 3 month period when you have the first prenatal moon,
Okay.
where which would be like essentially a type of eclipse that comes in. If my understanding is correct, it's been a while since I learned this, but when you really have that embodiment come in of the soul. So it's interesting how it lines up with what a lot of people feel too, is when there's consciousness, or
Yeah.
like,
So the what you're going to be doing today is the tropical.
yeah,
Okay.
tropical astrology. And then the background is more of the vibrational and medieval astrology. That more just gets into my interpretation of it.
Okay. Okay. I'm really looking forward to this. Can you
And then I have
yeah.
tarot cards and oracle cards that we can do too. I don't like to use tarot cards as just a method for doing any one thing. I just like to add them for context.
Okay.
Gives
All
a
right.
little bit of context with it and stuff, which is so funny. I used to really think tarot was almost demonic, and then I
Yeah, I've heard
really
that.
dug in and did my research on it. And I was like, oh, okay, I see where it comes from, and how during the Council of Nicaea, there was this huge push to shut down tarot. It's a bit more complicated than that, but and really, like, the astrologers back in those days got shut down. They were the ones providing a lot of great stuff for when to observe the holidays. And it even gets into Easter, which we just had, which ended up falling in Taurus season. And
Yeah.
if astrologers would have been more of a part of the Council of Nicaea, then we wouldn't have had it kind of end up like that, like a really late feeling Easter because of the way it was defined. It wasn't based on the stars. So it wasn't actually astrologically aligned Easter this year.
Easter was a very odd date this year. And
Yeah.
something that I've looked into a little bit is in the beginning, there's actually 13 months instead of 12. And maybe some of your astrology covers some of that. But the idea was for the 13 months, every month starts on a, I think it starts on a Sunday, ends on a Saturday, or I could be completely butchering this, but the the way that the calendar is set up is for things like that to show up as, what's the best word I could use? Uneven. And I haven't dug into this enough to talk about this educatedly. Education. I'm not educated enough in this to really dive deep into it, but have you ever looked into the whole 13-month, 12-month
Yeah,
theory?
it seems to be a difference in observing the year in a lunar cycle based on a solar cycle. And I went back and forth on this for a long time, and I thought it needed to be the 13-month system so we don't have the leap year. Then I started to get into the creation of the Gregorian calendar, uh, all of these things. And it seems best to keep it as a solar thing. It is interesting to play on what the etymology of month though, and moon, moon
Yeah.
or month. Uh,
Oh.
but if we were to switch it to that understanding, I mean, it would almost be that you switch the astrology up entirely, and it wouldn't be paying homage to Christ or to the solar logos, like through which our spirits embody this realm, and understanding things being in the light. This gets into some really, this is just kind of touching on it and getting into some really uh, deep hermetic teachings, but I do like now with a lot of the stuff that I've learned, and there's a great guy named Dr. Narco Longo. He runs the channel Old World Florida, and he can really and has before done deep dives on this and why the solar month is better. But there is something too when people talk about the 13-month system and ways to do that. It kind of gets into a little bit of what would it be called? The Chinese zodiac and Chinese astrology too. So
Okay.
there is a system in place there. It is something great to be observed even by us astrologers.
Yeah.
But I think it is a lot more useful uh, in a hermetic sense when you really get deep on it to observe the 12-month year.
Okay. Okay. Well, pull her up. Let's see how fucked up
Yeah,
I
let's
am.
take a look here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All
So we're
right.
sharing this before we hit record, we tested this that it would work. So my hope is that it will work a second time for anybody listening. Um,
Yeah,
we'll
it
still
says
try
that
to
I'm
be
screen sharing,
descriptive.
so we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. I think it should work. I think we're good.
Yeah. So yeah, we got your chart right here. And like I said, I took a glance at it and everything. But do you want to, I don't know if you can see well enough here.
I can see.
Uh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to zoom in on your birth time
Okay.
and everything, make sure it's all correct. Of course, I didn't enter anything in wrong before
It
I
was
get
11
going
at
on it.
night, not 11 in the morning. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Good thing I did that. All right, I'll edit that for you.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's take a look here. Okay, so and really the only thing that it didn't shift any planetary placements like dramatically, maybe the moon like a couple degrees.
Sure.
But the main thing that shifted was actually your house system. So the house system, if you look at these inner right here pieces of the pie,
Yep.
that will shift through the signs as the day progresses.
Okay.
And then each house system is going to represent certain things. So you've got, with the first house that is representative of the Aries energy and the things that Aries governs, and then Taurus and Gemini and so on, all the way to the 12th house Pisces. So it's just another aspect of it. We're using the Placidus house system, which is the most popular.
Okay.
But yeah, so really with it shifting the houses, I'm looking at it for the first time here, so this will be fun.
Yeah.
Uh, and one of the interesting things, or do you have any questions before I kind of start? I'll just kind of go with
I'm
whatever
I'm in
jumps
over
out at
my
me.
head right now, so explain to me like I'm five.
Okay.
That's what
So
I got right now. So I'm excited to learn about myself though. This will be
yeah,
fun.
of course. Well, I'll just the thing that pops out to me is it looks like you've got two grand trines. So a trine would be an aspect where it's within 1 or 2 degrees, uh, where the planets are connecting. So it's these blue lines you see here.
Okay.
And with that, it's just a positive aspect. It's one of the positive aspects. There's trines and there's sextiles, but a
Okay.
sextile is a bit more of a degree variance in it, but we won't go to. We'll just view the blue lines as good. The red lines are more of challenges, but they're
Okay.
not always bad. It's kind of checks. They're checks on each other.
So
Uh,
what does this blue line say then about me?
Well, essentially, the way that I viewed it is that it's a type of superpower, and it is something that you can carry in. You tend to carry in from a past life.
Okay.
So looking at this one right here, and down here in the corner, it shows because it'll be hard sometimes to see which one, but you can look at this table, and it has the different symbols of the planet. So it'll tell you what is trining, what the triangles are, the trines there. But you've got your down here in Aquarius, you've
Mm-hmm.
got your sun, of course, you're in Aquarius, and then you've got your Saturn is conjunct right there, and then your Mercury is conjunct the Saturn, all in that sign of Aquarius. So that's a really powerful aspect. That's what you're trying to the moon here with, and to Jupiter, and your Jupiter is in Libra. That's just like mine because it's a slower moving planet. So and we're born on the same year.
Okay. So
Moon is in Gemini.
okay. So essentially what you're saying is when somebody is born at this exact time, this is how the universe is lined up, meaning that's where the planets were at time of birth, and then that somehow affects the energy. Is that
Yeah, yeah. So it would
okay?
be like the energy that's coming through at that time. You're imprinted with the energy, the current energetics of the planet,
Okay.
and it's a lot of
Okay.
what you carry with you. I would even make the argument that you decide which body you're going to be born into before you embody on this earth, based on what you're looking for. And we're so advanced as beings in the higher planes that we pick based on that astrological alignment, what will serve us best, like which body would, and the energetics and the gifts that we bring in, all of
O-
that.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, within so just some themes of Aquarius, since we're starting where you've got these three planets here that are bunched up. Aquarius is very much the collective of the people, represents technology, connecting with others. There's a hermit type of behavior that can be embodied in Aquarius. There's a lot of people will say like the Ice Queen or the Ice King
Mm-hmm.
when talking about the Aquarian energy, an ability to easily pull away from people, to be emotionally cold at times. And I've got an Aquarian moon, so I was like, oh gosh, that definitely describes me with that Aquarian moon is being emotionally cold a little too much with people, especially growing up too, before I learned to work on it.
Mm.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, and this is in your fourth house, so it's the house that would be representative of the Cancer energy. So this is of the home energy. This house also deals with parents too, uh,
Okay.
like just representative of parents too. So perhaps you have parents that met in a very unique way, or they were in the middle of doing something rebellious. That's something I've gotten less into. That was the parent aspect, so I won't lean into that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the home though is a big thing. One thing I didn't say about Aquarians and the Aquarius energy is it's rebellious. I don't think I said that at least.
Mm.
But then also other ways of thinking. fresh ways of thinking, new ideas. Like, you can always count on an Aquarian of a group to introduce new and radical ideas for stuff. So I find it interesting because what you were talking about, and of course, this totally shifted the house system from what I looked at before. So this is the first time I'm looking at it. But you were talking about the ways that we could be in the house, and we shared this too with each other. We both had this going on when we were going through our darker days in the last few years here. But being hermits in the house and pulling away into the room, and that's very much of that like Aquarius combination
Yeah.
with the uh, the fourth house there, and that's where your sun is. So it has to deal with what people see and what the personality is, just your way of normally operating. And then we also have your Saturn there, and Saturn's going to represent a lot of limitations. So there's this theme of that being a limiting factor in your life until you move through it, of course. And it's interesting with Saturn in Aquarius and of course my Saturn's in Aquarius as well, just in a different house. But Saturn in Aquarius people, they're going to end up somewhere in life where if you looked at them 10 years prior, you would have never thought they were headed. It's like
Yeah.
totally off the beaten path. They'll look out and say, "Oh, I'm going this way. This is like what I'm going to do," and then other people will even have a certain idea of it. And then within a couple of years, they're somewhere totally and completely different. And this gets into that rebel nature of it too.
Yeah.
And I also find it interesting because of the podcast too. You're at home with the podcast in that fourth house energy, like recording them. But then in the Aquarian energy, there's the technology
Right.
aspect that's going with it. It's going out to people, to the people.
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
very interesting there too. And there's the idea of ideas themselves too. When you're looking at the Mercury being right in there too. And so we're communicating, you're communicating this stuff out to the collective
Yeah.
on, well, and talking about ideas, comparing ideas and all of that. And a lot of these ideas deal with the limitations that people have put on themselves with like their Saturn placements in their life too. Very much, it's so funny. It just kind of gets into the transformative energy, but I'll kind of move
Yeah.
to some other aspects here, but I didn't know if you
Is
wanted
there a
to.
certain time that transformative energy kicks in, or is that something that is kind of ingrained in my reading? Like, is transformation always a possibility, or is there only a certain time that it can happen?
Well, some people would look at, if you're looking down here at the AC, this is like of course your rising or your ascendant,
Uh-huh.
and then you have your midheaven, and then I forget if this is called the descendant. I think it's called the descendant, and then like
Okay.
intercontinental or so. It was something like that.
Okay.
Because I'm less familiar on these, but I have seen astrologers talk about these as being points in your life or points in your journey.
Okay.
And as far as the Saturn rotation goes, and this isn't, I shouldn't even really speak on it because I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's almost like you have the transformation occurring towards like right around where a Saturn square would be.
Okay.
I could be wrong with that, but you'd be coming up on a Saturn square in a couple of years here. They'd be like 2, 3 years. So being in the midst of that transformation right now would make a
Yeah.
lot of sense to me. But this is
Right.
something I'm like I've overlaid it onto stuff and had some pretty accurate readings, had
Yeah.
some predictions recently based off of that. So I do think it's important to mention. But then there's also the transits to look at too, and
And
looking
what
at
are the transit, the symbols in between
these would
each?
be the green symbols right here.
Okay. Okay.
So this is like where all these planets currently are on your chart.
Okay.
And and so looking at this too, like that transformation energy, yeah, I would say it's almost like the intercontinental is where the IC there. That's
Mhm.
probably where the transformation starts to end, which would be at your Saturn square. So I would say you've been in the midst of it because when these planets were crossing, or especially the Saturn on your Saturn return,
Right.
that was the time around COVID when we were talking about just going through the destruction, because it'll bring that destructive energy, and then from the ashes something comes up into that next Saturn square.
Yeah.
And the Saturn square is about where Saturn's going to check in on you, be like, okay, how have you done? Like, how are we going to move you ahead? What can we bless you with, like based on the work that you put in?
Right. Right.
And yeah, this is aspecting your moon is in Gemini, and that's in the ninth house. Ninth house represents higher knowledge. There's a travel aspect to it. There's belief systems. Religion can fall into there too. Uh, but really, like it's new ideas with it being in the Gemini energy, like being very open to discussing all sorts of belief systems, and spirituality, all that stuff comes into it. And so with that aspecting too, that is something that you see kind of being that not even kind of that it's being talked about on the podcast you're doing here too,
Yeah. Right.
is talking about these deeper parts of life and getting into the ideas and communication aspect of that stuff. And Jupiter is over here, which is really interesting because as we're talking right now, like the moon is crossing over on your Jupiter, like within, I mean, it will be within a few hours of now, essentially. But Jupiter, it kind of gets this interesting rap because a lot of people view Jupiter as this thing that gives you all sorts of blessings, and in a way that can be true. But Jupiter is represented by Thor. It's funny because well, I shouldn't say it's funny, but just we're talking right now on Thursday, which is named after Thor, of course, and this is Jupiter Day.
Nothing
Uh,
by accident.
I know exactly right, and but it's there's a material, not I shouldn't say materialization, but ideas in the process of becoming manifest. That's probably how I would read it right there.
That's
And it's
that's
just
pretty
interesting
accurate.
as the moon, yeah, crosses it
Yeah.
too, which is that which it's aspecting the moon right now. So I just find that interesting. But yeah, and it's right on your ascendant too. So a lot of the expansion, and that really is the biggest part of Jupiter, is the expansion, reaching the next level.
Hmm.
And it is the ruler of Sagittarius, which is that ninth house I was talking about, the higher knowledge,
Okay.
all of that, all those like themes that I kind of laid out right there.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's going to be such a part of your soul's journey too, is accessing that higher knowledge right there. And the ruling planet of Libra is Venus. So I was where is your Venus at right there? Because it makes me want to move over to Venus a little bit, but the Jupiter is aspected well. So as long as you're leaning into expansion, I
Hmm.
mean, you're going to see things line up in a very synchronistic and beautiful way. There is this magic aspect and fortune telling that kind of ties in
Sure.
right there.
Okay.
Uh, and just synchronicities. It's the higher knowledge. It's that deep spirituality. So very much aligned there. Really interesting. But following that over to where your Venus is right here, it's actually at 0 degrees Aries. So one of the biggest things, and then this is in your sixth house too. So that would be your house of Virgo, the Virgo energy house. So when there's this beautiful way that you are not only reborn because it's aspecting your Pluto,
Mm.
and it will also be transformative to the people around you. But getting back to it, the self love, because Aries represents the self. This is in your sixth house, so it represents routines. So when you get into a routine of self love, you're seeing it benefit the people around you,
Okay.
and then you're seeing like so many things within the chart unlock, like even bad aspects that you would have. I don't like to use the word bad, but like how you're squaring with the moon right now. uh, I think that's a square. Would that be a square or a quincunx? It's pretty sure it's I want to make sure yeah, that's a square. Okay. So how you're squaring with the moon right now, like that could have been something like lack of self-love would have messed with your emotions a lot in the past, and it would have just taken
Okay.
you into the mind so much, you know, but now with having that routine of this, the big emphasis is routine.
Yeah.
And then also the sixth house represents your health too. So like when you were at the point in your life when you didn't have self-love was when you would have seen the most health issues as well.
Right.
And let's see here with
Which
since
makes a lot of
it's
sense because I want to say my last, God, 2020 to 2024, I felt like I was sick once every couple months with something. I was always sick. And it's probably because, I was doing things that are degenerative and I shouldn't have been doing. But um, it kind of goes into that whole self-love that you're explaining. So on this chart, essentially, there are variables. So if I'm in a place of self-love, then that maybe that challenge that I would be facing with the moon would would be in front of me. But because it's the other variable of I'm in a place where like my favorite person is me, that challenge is essentially not a non-factor in my life.
yeah, it can, and the way that I view it, I don't know if I've heard other astrologers say this, but the way I've seen it in the charts is it unlocks into something that you can use for your benefit.
Okay.
It's and that's why I like to say it's a check on something. As long as you're passing that check on it,
Yeah.
you're good to go. And then the energy can flow into other areas of your chart. Because
Right.
I really like to view like all of these lines as directions in which the energy flows through the chart. And the blue lines are just the it's almost funny because it's almost reversed. But I would say the blue lines, they're gifts and energy is gonna flow through them, but the red lines will pull energy
Okay.
as long if they're not being respected. But if they're being
Yeah.
respected, then the energy is like just going right through it and really flowing more into the positive lines. Now, this is my own interpretation as an astrologer. You know,
Sure.
everyone has their different views on it, and someone who may have 20 years more as an astrologer under their belt than me might feel differently on that. So just what I've
Okay.
noticed with like the readings that I've done though.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was gonna look excuse me. Let me actually get some water here. I was gonna look at your Mars here because since we were looking at that 0 degree Aries, you know, the ruler of Aries is Mars. So I'm like, let's move on to the Mars next and see what's hitting the Mars.
Okay.
So your Mars is at opposition with so Mars right here
Hmm.
in Cancer in the ninth, at opposition with Uranus, and
I love
that's
how you say
actually
Uranus. Do you
I
purposely say
know,
it like that?
yeah,
Okay. All right. That's
because
good.
less likely to get the jokes, right?
Well, you still got it.
Yep.
All right. All right.
Oh
Keep
my
going.
goodness.
Sorry. I hope I didn't throw you off.
No, no, you're
Give me
okay.
Uranus. Uranus.
Oh man. And it's really interesting too, because the Uranus is right on top of the Neptune too, so it's like it's a super conjunct there, or some would even call that a Cazimi. I don't know. I think the Cazimi technically though is when it's like right on top of the sun, so I don't even think that technically counts as a Cazimi. But
Okay.
I mean, they're right on top of each other, which is interesting and really strong. So with Uranus, that is the ruling planet of, and we talked about this a little bit before, but ruling planet of Aquarius. So of course, this is your ruling planet, and it's got that opposition with your Mars. Mars is it has to do with the action that you take. Sexuality falls into it too, but I really like to view it in, you know, what actions am I taking? Where's my vitality coming from? A lot of it's just a very energetic, like getting things done type of planet.
Right.
And so that's still in your ninth house too. So when you're doing things like you're doing now with the higher knowledge, with the deeper things in life, you're going to see you have more energy to get these things done.
Yeah.
You're just going to be a powerhouse for that stuff energetically. And it'll be interesting when we move on to your human design, because it lines up with what I pulled up on your human design. But I did put in the wrong time. on your human design. So
Oh,
maybe it changes, but I think it would still end up being the same, even with that time
okay.
differential.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but and these, Neptune and Uranus, and that's in Capricorn, by the way. Uh, they're not personal planets. It has to deal more with a lot of the collective energies. You can use them, from what I've noticed, in aspects to your personal planets. That's why I brought up Mars.
Mhm.
But I try not to put too much emphasis on them. It just gives kind of a background life theme and energetic theme. And it is in your third house of communication, and Neptune being the planet of spirituality too. Really, like, if, as long as you're not involved in any type of substance abuse and all that, Neptune is going to rule that substance abuse, the escapism that comes along with it.
Right.
So that's where it aspects your Mars bad, and you're not going to get things done. There's not going to be forward momentum in your life too. And then
Damn.
being right on top of Uranus, things will come out of nowhere too,
Yeah.
that strike you, that puts you out where you can't do certain things. And that is in that's in the third house, so it kind of gets leans more into the hermit energy, but also it would be in your workplace, in your public facing life. It would cause you to like drop off and vanish for periods too, when that's being hit like that.
Wow.
I know it gets pretty. It's crazy. See, it's like I'm kind of used to it now with the readings I give, but every time I give them to people, they're like, "That's just so insane," and it is insane. I remember looking at this and getting really deep into it at first, and I was just like, "Whoa, like, God, this is a science at this point," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And a lot of it does make sense because I think everything on this earth has a purpose. And I don't know if a lot of us have really decided what the whole purpose of planets and stars are, but it would make a lot of sense to me that this would be one of the purposes of it is to navigate and assign that energy to the energy beings that are, you know, being created.
Yeah, and I think it was a big part of the crackdown on astrology, which had, you know, there's many different periods and phases of it, but just observing the Council of Nicaea part too, because you can't control people when they can just look at the stars. I know how much it's even freed me just looking at the politics of what's going on, and being able to stay very grounded and centered on things, and just
Yeah.
feel like, okay, well, this is going to happen with this side, this with this side, because with these alignments, you can run what's called an ephemeris and see where certain alignments were, especially these outer planets that move so slow,
Right.
and that spend 13 to 20 years just in one sign, not even going through the whole zodiac, which can be over 100 years up to 200 years,
Right.
and yeah, just it's really making me conscious of just the direction that things are heading. But I kind of forgot where I was going back with that. What was it you just said?
Uh, I,
I was bringing that back around to
Yeah,
something. I'm like,
yeah.
oh
I
gosh.
I was talking about the purpose of planets and the purpose of stars. And I think a lot of us go through life looking up at them, first of all, taking them for granted, but then second of all, not understanding what the purpose of them are. Is the is maybe
Oh
what
yeah.
what this is the purpose is to give us that different energy to make each one of us unique. Is that creation of the universe is what helps assemble each one of our DNA individually.
Yeah, and some of the things that certain channelers will talk about, Pleiadian channelers, they talk about how technically our DNA is a type of crystal, a type of antenna. People can have parts of their brain removed
Yeah.
and still be functioning. I mean, and my mom is like a great example. Had a quarter of her brain removed. She's still the same person and all that. So there's something more to the personality, to the soul, to the way someone is embodied than just the brain. It almost seems to be more tied to computing power. I know it can take my mom a little bit longer to think on things, but she's got all of her memories. And it's almost as if the brain and the DNA itself is an antenna receptacle for whatever signal the soul sends in to embody, which I would say comes through. This gets into some more hermetic teachings, comes through the Christ or the solar logos, the sun as embodying that. The sun has all the magnetic connections with the planet, and then you just have this insane resonance system that are playing off of each other. That all of these signals are traveling through of all the different souls to embody within here at any given time, and no signals are really interfering with each other. And then you could even bring this into people channeling certain entities or demonic possession, all these like as a term of what which ways in which are you changing that frequency within your body to match certain energies and bring energies in, and a lot of stuff like that. But now I remember where I was looping that back around to was the shutdown of the astrology too. It's because it really is, it's been so freeing for me as a person to have these understandings
Yeah.
and then go into certain situations knowing that, help people in their lives with that too. As I said, this is a type of therapy I can give people. It seems to be what I've been attracting to myself, getting people through a lot of energetic blocks and recurring themes in their life, being able to see it in the astrology. And I think they didn't want that for people, because even we really carry a lot of this from the King James Bible, and how that was how the way in which it shut down astrologers. You even had John Dee, who one of the most phenomenal astrologers, who had to come out and issue an apology and say, oh, it's demonic and all of these things because of King James coming into power and all that. But just before that, with Queen Elizabeth, it was perfectly fine for him to be practicing. She was really cool, and let him do all sorts of his stuff. It was about rediscovering those arts, because Queen Elizabeth carried on the schism from the church, which Henry the eighth did, with the schism from the Catholic Church, which really funny. It was in 1555, so 555, really interesting year date right there. But
Yeah.
then also, this was another time that Neptune moved into Aries,
Okay.
and there was a complete shift in spirituality. So I feel that coming on in these times, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of a longer-winded answer, but
I love your long-winded answers. All right.
um,
So yeah, let's talk more about how cool I am. So
yeah, yeah.
we were looking at the third house and those two planets that are right next to each other. You said that was Neptune, and what was the other one? Your
Uh,
Uranus.
yeah, Uranus.
Okay.
Yeah, and other astrologers, this is kind of the next thing that I'm working on, keeping track of the degrees at which they're at, and each degree meaning something. We'll call them deacons, and you can overlay, the zodiac wheel into each of these 30-degree segments,
Okay.
and then something like that can even represent something like a deeper level than even the house system.
Okay.
But I wouldn't attempt to. Like, I could guess at what that degree would be. I'd probably be wrong,
Yeah.
which zodiac sign that represents. But that is like another deeper way of which it goes. I'll be doing soon enough. Uh, but I see in the same house, in that third house, you've got your North Node, and the North Node is really interesting. North Node in Sagittarius, so it's the direction in which we're heading in life, the thing we want to move towards
Okay.
in our life. And I find it so interesting because I'm also North Node Sagittarius. Um, but and this is like one of the ways in which we've connected too. There is that magnetism to it. Also, like, you're, as long as you're respecting the things that are in your chart, or you're living by it in a way that is the reason your soul embodied here for, and moving towards that in the ultimate sense, then things are going to magnetically attract. So even the way in which all of a sudden we've come together and started doing this, and it
Yeah.
was both of the things we were both focusing on too,
Yeah.
being more front facing and getting into our individual things of it. But in Sagittarius is that ninth house I was talking about, where your moon and your Mars is. It's that higher knowledge, philosophy, belief systems, like religious, but not dogmatic religion, because that's going to be more Capricorn, Saturn energy,
Right.
but more of like the Jupiter religion, which is more just about the belief system. And yeah, so like anything that like moving towards discussing those things and being into those things is just like it is part of what your soul embodied here to do. And then with it being there, that will put your south node in Gemini. And south node isn't so much, some people say it's what you're moving away from. I agree with that partially. I think there may be times in life where you move away from it, because what I really think is they're the gifts you bring in from a past life where you did really well. So being an excellent communicator, what is something you carry from your past life, being able to connect easily with people,
Mm,
process a lot of ideas for consideration, and just cycle them through, be like, oh, this is interesting, this is, like, a lot of that is stuff that you carry through. There may be moments in your life where you don't want to lean as much into it because it's what you mastered in a past life. And
okay.
but really, like, there, it is something great to be honored. And I wouldn't always say you're always moving away from it,
Hmm.
but I think just honoring that is something you mastered in a past life, using those skills, but not getting locked into just that,
Right.
because it's not where your north node is.
Yeah, and
uh
that makes a lot of sense because I was in a career that did focus on communication and I was successful with it, but I didn't want to carry on with it. I
yeah, it
feel
just like didn't land. I
yeah,
feel you on that. It's the
and I
exact same thing
and I feel
for
like
me.
this in a way is communication, but it feels a little bit different. And I think it kind of maybe relates to what you were saying earlier about the quest to find more information, which kind of unlocks us. And that's the way that I'm kind of going into this is with a branch of curiosity, asking a lot of questions and trying to learn and understand perspectives.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, it's such a great mixture of that Sagittarian energy and then the Gemini energy. Like, what you're carrying that, like, that energy, and you're using it to move towards. It's perfect. Yeah.
I got that big G energy.
I think we covered most. I think the
Okay.
last thing here is just your Chiron, and Chiron is an asteroid. It's in Leo. It's in your 10th house, so it's the wounded healer. And so, really interesting placement here. It's where, like, a lot of your healing will happen in
Okay.
your life. I want to get more into Chiron. I just know how I've identified it in my chart and other people's charts. It goes really deep. There's this book that I'm going to get. It's called Chiron, the Wounded Healer.
Yeah.
Uh, but a fantastic book. But yeah, in your 10th house, so that's the house of Capricorn, your public life, uh, what people see you, how they perceive you, has to do with your work life. Capricorn is systems and all of that. And then the Leo energy, it deals with children, is one of the things it deals with. Genealogy, but also just the personality. The ruler of Leo is the sun, so a lot of the solar aspects of being, that's why people say that Leos like love to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
Well, it's like because the sun is the center of the attention, and that's the ruling planet of Leo.
Okay.
So you know,
Yeah.
and but just really like letting the personality shine through. So this would be like, you either have seen or will see a huge amount of healing in your life through allowing your personality to shine through in the way where it's publicly available and everyone can actually see that in itself. There may have been like a time where you suppressed certain parts of your personality,
Yeah.
and then once you allow that to shine through, then you're solid, and you just see this huge amount of healing. And it's
That's
funny because it doesn't even need to be connected with
right.
a lot of the other stuff in the chart, because it just goes with the theme so much of the energy flow I was talking about.
So each one of these houses, these 12 houses, do I live in all these houses at once or do I jump from house to house or why do we call it a house?
I'm not sure why it's really called a house per se. I think it's because everything is. I really like my teacher, one of my teachers, the Leo King, and how he describes planets a lot, and especially the energy we're in now is being in a house and then entering a new room. A lot of times, he's like, you're still in the same
Okay.
house, but you're entering a new room
I
and all
see.
that. I just like randomly think of that.
Okay.
So maybe I think that's why it's like stuck so well, the
Sure.
house system and what it's called.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but yeah, like I do like to go into that idea of you're entering a new room as you move through the entire zodiac in rotation.
Right. Okay. All right.
But yeah,
Shit, man.
that's pretty
That's
much. I mean, there's like transits we could talk about, but we've talked about them in previous stuff. Just a lot of the
yeah.
energy we're seeing here on the outside
Right.
is that Aries energy of just starting a lot of new things, like new things within communication, fresh ideas, and all that. There's a healing aspect that comes along with it, and this is in your seventh house too. So, you know, like new relationships with people in which you're communicating. That's a theme for your life right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say it has been healing for you.
Yeah.
There's been some level of healing on that. And then your Venus, you just had that as Venus crossed over into Aries, you had your well, a Venus return, because Venus returns will happen every I think it's like not quite 2 years. I forget if it was 180 days,
Okay.
190 days, something like that. I'm probably wrong on that. I might be yeah, I might be thinking of Mars actually. I'll just but anyway, like your Venus return to that point. So definitely in terms of yeah, like there's a new venture that can be financially beneficial for you, and it is tied around how you work it into your routine. That would be within like the last couple of weeks you've really started to get a handle on that.
Yeah.
Neptune, of course, is that outer planet. So there, but there's this backdrop of Neptune and Aries having a new way to approach spirituality, spirituality advancing in your life in ways which you can do action about it. So even the podcast and the revelations that have come to you through talking to people and through that action you're putting in
Yeah.
is the spiritually advancing, I would say. And we have Saturn is getting really close here and moving into Aries. So for people like you and I that have really been leaning into a lot of these energies, not going to be as hectic, but for people that you would call like normies, people that aren't paying attention to the planets and trying really hard to hang on to how things have been for them the last few years, this
Mm-hmm.
is where the next month becomes really difficult for them.
Okay.
The things that are going to happen on the world stage, how it will affect their lives, because Saturn is that limiter. And another great way I learned about Saturn from the Leo King, he talks about Saturn is like this wind up toy, and you know you have to you wind it up a certain amount. If you wind it up more, it's like going to go faster. You wind it up less, it'll go a little slower, and all that. But make sure you're on track because Saturn does rule time.
Yeah.
So people who are like on track with where the energies are headed, where their north node is, all that stuff, like what their soul embodied here for, then Saturn comes through and it actually like will work with that Jupiter to give you the type of blessings that are, you know, coming your way.
Yeah.
But if not, then Saturn's going to push you and force you into certain things. So that's one of the things I talk about in the readings I do is, you know, they've got this Saturn coming in for this, for either your Saturn return or just coming into this new sign. Like, have you, you know, accomplished this, this, and this, like within your life? Like, where do you feel you're at? Do you feel you're lagging behind? Or because you kind of just know where you're at, what you should be doing, and these markers you should be meeting, especially once you turn, you know, once you're 28 to 30 and you've crossed through your Saturn return, then there's really that good idea of where you're at. And Saturn will push you there, you know, because we were going through our Saturn returns together and we were screwing around and Saturn was like, okay, like sit the fuck down and figure your life out.
Fuck around and find out, Saturn said.
But and then I guess that's like the last thing I was going to talk about is people holding on and grasping onto things because right now we've got the South Node, what we're moving away from. See, and this is where I think the South Node is more about being moved away from as the collective, where the transit is at any given point.
Yeah.
So what we're moving away from right now is people trying to be stuck in the same routine, keeping things the same as they are, have everything in its cute little place. That's why people say Virgos are you know, like clean freaks and neat freaks and all that stuff. And it's very
Yeah.
true. But it's like the Virgo way of that daily routine. People want to keep the daily routine the same and all that. And the North Node right now is in Pisces, so it's about letting go of that control, being more into. And this is why a lot of people are awakening to spiritual concepts too, because Pisces is rules like the spirit realm. It's the hidden realm. You know, this is when I say. Uh, JD Vance is a 12th houser, like I've said before.
Yeah.
That's this is where the archetypes exists, and they come through the 12 different archetypes. And it's a very mysterious hidden realm and all that, so people need to be okay going into the unknown right now. So there's going to be a lot of unknowns we're moving into. We're still, I think it's another 12 months, maybe a couple more months, because we moved into it at the beginning of this year, that we're in these nodal aspects. So everything is about leaving those types of things behind, moving forward into it, and all that. And of course, we got the Pluto and Aquarius. There's the backdrop of new technology coming out, things moving more towards a collective based thing going on. The people having more control and more say in things. But then, like, the lower octave of that is having people fade into the background too. So that's where people need to be careful. If people aren't honoring where these nodes are at, they will fade into the background. And the worst thing right now to be is someone who scrolls through all the stuff, doesn't comment, doesn't like, doesn't interact with anything, but just watches. And that's not really going to be rewarded so much. It's that fading into the background. That's where you start to have these huge energetic blocks. Saturn will come through and wreck your life,
Wow.
uh, yeah, and then I mean that's pretty much it. We've got Mars is like moving again. It's moving nice and fast. I believe it just came out of shadow. So we had this retrograde at the end of last year where Mars was in Leo. This is actually my sign where Mars is too.
Okay.
So I was like on top of it. I was like selling crystals and doing all sorts of stuff. And
Yeah.
then the Mars retrograde hit, and I just was like, oh, I can't. I there was this huge like reevaluation. I could hardly. I was sleeping more, but wasn't feeling rested. And
Yeah.
mind you, I was completely sober then too. So it wasn't even like I was messing around or doing anything. I
Yeah.
was on top of my health still, but it really hit me energetically. That moved back into or retrograded, I should say, and it went into Cancer. And within like 24, 48 hours of that, it was so interesting. We had the California wildfires.
Right.
And, because Mars being representative of that fire,
Yeah.
and just wild. And then Cancer, a water sign, which represents the home. So you saw fire all of a sudden on all these homes. And, it was so interesting because there's the home aspect, there's the water aspect. But what did you see? There was no water at home for them to put out the fires,
Do you do you believe in direct energy weapons?
Oh yeah, and I definitely think there's a lot there with the DEWs that were going on there. And it's interesting because there's always the satellite footage. There's with the Paradise fires, with these fires.
Yeah, yeah. And there's been different footage of seeing some sort of like electronic shock, which looks like a bolt of lightning that will spark these things. It's something that really blows my mind because you don't know what you see on the internet if it's real or not, but I've seen so many videos of when people do the Google Maps thing and then they'll like zoom in on Antarctica and it moves into like inside this trailer that has all this different information on it, and you really wonder if that might be something that's kept on Antarctica as some sort of technology that is beyond a lot of our comprehension. And I don't want to downplay what happened in California or in Hawaii because there was a lot of people affected by it. And, um, maybe it's not the most polite thing to speculate a conspiracy theory on somebody else's tragedy. However, it when you see certain videos online and who's to know what's real and what isn't, I'm not gonna trust what CNN or Fox shows me, but why should I maybe trust something that I see just on X, maybe from a traffic light camera? I guess it's that balance of finding out what's true and what isn't, but it it's an interesting topic, and it's I think a really good example of it was in Dubai last year for the crypto conference when they were doing that cloud seeding and then the rain
Mm-hmm.
happened and it flooded Dubai really, really badly because it was too much rain. And I understand cloud seeding is a lot different than DEW, but I think they can fuck with the weather, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and there's plenty of patents that are out from back in the day. And then, of course, now a lot of the things we do are moved into intellectual properties. It helps people cover it up more. It helps people explain it away. Well, like, oh well, you know, well actually, patents such and such and such, and then they'll shift it over to
Hmm.
intellectual properties,
Right.
because patents are a bit older these days. Like they're not so much utilized as much as intellectual properties these days. So people will say a patent of something doesn't exist when it's really an intellectual property. But this is something that goes back so far. There are patents and intellectual properties for it. And, just that alone should really tell you what they're doing. And it's unfortunate because it seems to me that they're putting heavy metals in the sky.
Hmm.
They're using a system like HARP, like they're using HARP itself, and then very similar systems to it. You've got the facilities down at Pine Gap that are essentially resonators, harmonic and frequency devices, taking a lot of these principles from Tesla, which is so interesting because, John Trump looted those.
Yep.
He looted the Tesla files and
Yeah.
moved it over into Majestic 12, who are in control of like the whole UFO subject. And it's such a part of why Trump is hated so much right now, is because he's the only one who knows through his uncle all of the stuff that's really going on behind the scenes. He's the only one who can sit with them equally at the table and actually know what capabilities the deep state has, or the military industrial complex. And that scares them because they're used to having complete and utter control. And
Yeah.
if something happens, if anything steps out of line, oh, we can just do this weather event, or we can do something like 9/11.
Hmm.
It's just these periods of, they step out of the shadows, they do something to traumatize the collective, and they move back in, and it takes us years to scramble and figure out what happened in the missing. We won't even talk about the missing money, with
The
the
two
penning of the
trillion.
missing trillions. Yeah. And it's really interesting because I think I brought this up our last one, but Catherine Austin Fitts, yeah, I did bring this up last time. She brought that up, the housing and urban development assistant secretary under the Bush administration,
Yeah.
and all the money that she accounted for. She ended up being asked to step down because it was just so bad, and she was asking too many questions of all the money laundering that was happening through it. But she has a great website called the Solari Report,
Okay.
and she's been documenting this for like 10 years on where this money is going, how she thinks it's being spent. Let me just,
Wet the
in
whistle.
these black projects, and
Yeah.
it's this breakaway civilization, and that is the thing that they know needs to come out in some extent. I'm off on a topic here, but I'm almost done. Like, they know
No,
that
no,
needs to
just
come
keep
out,
going. Yeah, keep going.
but it's like, how are we going to tell people about this? So you've got all these UFO people who are CIA counterintelligence stepping out and being like, "Oh yeah, let's give you the goods on UFO," and you can't trust anything they say. And all they're trying to do is damage control for when
Right.
this information comes out.
Right.
So because people are going to realize like how deep this goes, how many decades back it goes, how much money has been siphoned that could have been put into real things that advanced the population of the overworld, as they call it,
Yeah.
and not of the the secret space program, the underground facilities that they have, and all of it that people have been whistleblowing about for, I mean, Phil Schneider is one of like the biggest people that was talking about this, and he was killed. But he wrote that book, Behold a Pale Horse, which really is just a great intro book for anyone looking on what's going on with these deep underground military bases that they've been building since. I mean, they got their first foot in the door with it with was it Eisenhower?
I know
I think
Eisenhower had made a
or
speech. Okay.
FDR was the first wave of it, but Eisenhower definitely was doing it for the war and everything, but he lost control of it, as you're saying with that speech. He warned about
Right.
it because he lost control. JFK tried to take the control back, was killed because of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, when those highway systems were being created, that was a big part of when they started to build out these underground systems too.
It makes it easier to transport goods, logistics.
Yeah, and then people aren't asking so many questions. They're like, "Oh, well, we're just working on the highways."
Yeah. Right. Right. I love how we go from direct energy weapons to 9/11 over to over to the whole underground bases thing because
I know there's a
It
thread. I just got to keep pulling it. I'll be like,
yeah,
oh no.
and that's what this is. That's what all of this is it's this entanglement of, if you've ever tangled your fishing line really badly when you're out fishing and you get this tangle and it's like, okay, well, let me get this first knot. You straighten it out, but then it's like, well, fuck, I got another 97 knots to go. And by the time I get done with it, I'm going to be so mentally exhausted that I don't want to fish anymore. And how I
Yeah.
can relate that to all these conspiracies is, and it kind of relates over to this chart when you're talking about gaining that information. Because I've told myself, and I think I've mentioned this on an episode before with you. I've told myself, don't get too deep into it because it makes you super unhappy. But then why do I keep deep diving into it? Well, I feel like I dive into it, I guess, because I would like to, I would like just to understand. And that's my way of seeking knowledge, seeking conversation pieces. I don't seek this knowledge to correct anybody or to stand out as superior to anybody. Instead, I seek it out as useful information for productive conversations.
Yeah.
I feel
And
like a lot
the
of conversations
collective.
can't be too deep if you're blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, it's like you're just working with little bits and pieces of the truth. There's when there's not a holistic understanding, and of course there's going to be conflict between people because there's on a spiritual level, on an intuitive level, it's like part of you, your soul knows that you're not looking at the whole picture.
Mhm.
And so that's already creating internal conflict. And then you try to have these ideas go against other people's, which both of the ideas that are fighting are really just small parts of the truth that aren't looking at the whole thing.
Right.
So of course it's creating that friction and tension. So it's funny you bring it up with the chart because it's like the holistic view, right?
Yes.
Of so
Yeah.
many things, but and then just looking back at the past of the alignments, and it's like, oh, that was happening. That's actually really similar to this happening right here. Like, wow, okay.
Right.
And there is that idea of things getting rehashed right now. You can see it with the race war that they're trying to stoke right now. Because we're moving into the same alignment as the Civil War, or we just did move into it rather, that Neptune Aries. So that's like this first wave of stuff you see coming out with is everyone is really what it's showing right now is it's manifesting as a little bit of like a race war
Yeah.
and stuff, and but I think as time progresses here later in the year, it will be revisiting the Civil War and the lies that were told to us about the Civil War. Like
Yeah.
you can't even tell most Democrats that the Democrats were the ones who not only started the Civil War but were holding the slaves. Like, good luck telling them. And then like some of them will say, oh well, the Democrats totally switched platforms since then. It's like, well, no, they didn't switch platforms. The layout of where Democrats were and where Republicans were in the states, that flipped. That's the only thing that flipped. But the platform itself didn't flip. They have shifted their ideology as the years progress. But even looking at the voting of the civil rights, the ones who voted against it, because of course, like it was dominated at the time by Democrats. So there were a bunch of Democrats, of course, that voted to pass the Civil Rights Act and stuff. But of the people who didn't vote, who voted no on it, it was all Democrats and like three Republicans voted against. So pretty much when you're looking at that, that shows you the residual effect, even just in the 60s,
Yeah.
of where the Democrats were at, is that the ones that were voting against it were Democrats. And if I remember right, it was a while ago I researched this, Joe Biden was one of them who voted against it.
Really.
I remember looking into that back then, but I don't
Yeah.
know what kind of work they've done since he's been in office, because this was during his election that I looked into this, and I looked pretty deep. And people keep saying that information keeps changing, but it was my understanding that he voted against that, which I found shocking that black people were voting for him. But
Well, yeah, there's also clips of him spewing off the N-word in
I wasn't sure if it was real or not.
those are that's a real clip, 100% a real clip, but
Wow.
they use the whole topic of context, maybe quoting something. But then again, Rogan had a history of saying it on his show, again, reading something from a clip or talking about the word, not using it as a weapon, but rather talking about the word itself. and he gets lambasted. And then, Joey B is just having an ice cream cone taking a nap on a beach.
Mm.
But
Oh, I guess. Well, I should move on to your human design, but
yeah,
the only
that's
other thing I was gonna say is the what was it? I'm forgetting which.
this
It
large.
was yeah, there we go. It was I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Uranus moving into Gemini was World War II. So then,
Okay.
like, and I think really what it is us revisiting the lives from World War II
Yeah.
as we move into that period. And that's on the 7th of July. So 7/7 is the day which that moves into it. Uh, and then we've got, of course, the Saturn Aries. But yeah, like it's and there's the Revolutionary War, and then kind of rehashing that stuff with this same Neptune Aries. So all these things seem like they're going to be coming up this year. It
Okay.
seems like they're going to be exposed to the public, but then when they retrograde back in, there will be a cover story that's given, and it'll be like, oh, these people are just extremists and don't believe any of that, and back to your normal business.
Yep.
And people will be like, oh, okay, good, my safe little world, I'll be fine, and then it will just be like at that point, if you've fallen back into that, once the planets come back in from the retrograde into those signs, and it'll just be like bam, like here you go, this is actually the truth. So there's kind of like a theme of this year of seeing behind the curtain
Yeah.
for a little bit, and there'll still be a little bit of plausible deniability for people who really want to just who believe the world that's presented to us,
Right.
and they get one last chance to really accept it, and then it's going to be forced by the like very early next year.
Right.
But I'll grab your human design. I have to switch the time to PM though real quick.
All right.
Oh, cool. So remembered. Okay. PM. There we go. That was Fridley, right?
Yep. There it
All
is.
right.
Friendly Fridley.
Yeah, man. I've heard it's been developed a bit since it's probably been at
I
least eight
forget that
years since
you
I've
you're in
driven through.
Vegas now. So yeah, when's the last time you were here?
Huh. It would have been, it was like St. Patrick's Day of maybe 2016. So I was going to say 8 years, but 9 years, I
It's been
guess.
9 years since you've been here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You should come visit. It's nice.
I know. Yeah, that's really on my list soon. I think I'm gonna have a lot of people to see there for sure.
Yep. Yep.
But
Don't forget
it
about
looks
me.
like you got the same stuff too on here. But
All right.
but yeah, like my friend Andy, I was thinking over the summer of coming because it's so hot here,
Yeah.
of going to see him, and then I'll just see everyone. I'll have to tell people like on Instagram I'll be here,
Yeah.
like for anyone who wants, because there's no way I can see everyone who
It'll
wants
be
to
the
see
Raffi
me, but
tour.
oh my gosh. But yeah, so like I said, with human design, you can kind of see here the energy flow. I still am not great at reading this. One of my astrologer friends, Torianne, she's fantastic at understanding this and reading it and telling you all of
Yeah.
that. So definitely, when she comes on, she would love to get into that with you, or you could ask her about it.
Yeah. No,
But
she
I
should
do
come on.
know a bit about the stuff here on the right. And yeah, so your energy type. And of course, this is the rotation of Mercury 3 times. So it gets into energy type, personality type, and just the soul and the way that it works and everything. It's based on astrology, of course, but just a cool, deeper way to look at it. So
Definitely.
you're a generator, which is really cool. So it's funny because I'm a manifester. So manifestors and generators work really well off of each other, and that's
Okay.
exactly what we're doing. With being a manifester, my strategy of energy and the way I interact with the world is to inform,
Okay.
and then yours is like to respond. So it's just really interesting that I'm doing a lot of talking and stuff, and then you respond with more questions, so it's
Yeah.
like
Right.
perfect. Generators are perfect podcast hosts.
Really.
Oh yeah, oh
I'm generating the manifestation of your knowledge.
yeah. Yeah, so and generators they're gonna be very good at attracting things to themselves too. It's like that magnetic energy.
Okay.
And like I'm as a manifestor, I tend to go towards things more and initiate things.
Hmm.
uh just kind of giving you the difference because it's like the main two energy types. There's a couple other ones, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and then your authority or the way in which you make decisions, that's emotional there. So it's going to be tied to your solar plexus chakra.
Really?
So that would be like your, and it'll be interesting, whenever I see you in person, because then I could actually like read your energy. I was able to start seeing auras based off of keeping a dream journal
Yeah.
and accessing that theta wave brain state, like in my waking world by remembering dreams. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
But I would guess you're probably like a yellow aura. I usually see two colors though, so there's probably another color mixed in, of
Okay.
course.
Well,
But yeah,
nothing to do with the yellow room that I'm sitting in right now, right?
oh, yeah. Oh my goodness, that's great. And then this is really cool, your personality profile. So I don't I've actually had one other person with this with 2-4, but I don't like know off the top of my head. So it is something we can type into. Let's actually just type it in really quick
All
here.
right. I'm the easy breezy genius.
Oh,
Hermit.
okay.
Oh
So
shit,
hermit
of course.
opportunist. That
There I
makes
am.
sense.
That makes
For the first type, I have a heretic. So you can kind of see that in my social media presence. I tend to be a complete heretic, and I'll talk about things that are just super triggering to people, and
yeah.
I'll totally try to like move the Overton window. But yeah, with Hermit here, let's see it. Are we? Here we go. Let's just read the general. The 2-4 profile, a harmonious blend. If we can get rid of this, of solitude and connection is the easy breezy genius, a dance between introspection and charisma, where the hermit's wisdom meets the opportunist's social grace. Yeah, that ties in pretty well with the chart we read too. So,
Yeah. Cool.
all right. And then, of course, this is the strategy type I was talking about, which is
Yep.
responding.
Right.
So, yeah, just responding to the things that come into your energy field because you're going to attract so much to yourself
Right.
that to go out and it's more draining energetically to go out and initiate a lot, but then also and like inform, but yeah, like just you're gonna utilize the energy much better by responding and all of that.
Okay.
And then this is you're not self-themed, so it really like when you're not living in your design, this is the stuff you're going to be feeling. So frustration, that's how
Yeah.
you really know like, okay, I'm not working really with my energies properly. And then especially if I go down here, because it should say you're and then of course satisfaction means you're living within that, but your energy type split definition. So it's like you've got two alternating energy systems running, which is what makes you best at being able to respond to energies, because people will come in, you'll attract them in, and then those energy systems can connect by you responding to a problem or just discussing topics, all of that stuff.
Sure.
And I've got like a singular energy type, so it's like your split energy is like kind of conduiting, like I'm connecting them essentially, like with just being one singular.
Okay.
And just in terms of the energy dynamics of our conversation and how we
Right.
work and play off each other.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, like single definition people will be great for you, but when you get into like 4 definition energy types and stuff like that, like a lot of reflectors and stuff like that, then
Mhm.
and this will can explain times where like you just can't vibe with someone. A lot of times it's just a different energy type when you just can't like land on anything, but it helps you also get along. When you understand these, you get along with people better because you're like, oh, you're probably a reflector or you're probably a projector or something. So those are like the energy types are reflector, projector, manifester, generator, and then you also have the combination, which is manifesting generator.
Okay. I hate to label people, but I'm gonna have to start.
Right. And then yeah, your best digestion type is hot food. I like how it gets into the food type. So like
Yeah.
that's really when you're gonna like you love hot foods, of course. And this can even
Does that
like
mean
I
spicy?
haven't that's the thing is like I know that when you get deeper into it, because this is kind of just a general one,
Yeah.
but they'll make the differentiation between spicy hot and then also hot
Like
hot,
just
like
off
temperature wise.
right out of the
So
oven.
I'm not
Okay.
sure which one this one is for this website in
Okay.
particular,
All right.
but there's a great podcast called Gemini Rising, and they have quite a few human design people on there.
Yeah.
And I've listened to them speak for hours on it. So I know that this is more of a simple website because of how I've heard them explain about it, and that there is that differentiation between hot temperature wise and then hot what is it, the Scoville or something.
Schofield, yeah, of the peppers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am
And
gonna
then
argue with my strongest sense.
oh yeah.
I think it's my hearing.
Oh, for sure.
I
Okay.
think it is.
Nice.
That's the only thing so far in the of all this chart and all this reading that I gonna argue with. I
Nice. That's good. That's still like what, over 90% accuracy. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've got the same environment too as me, which is, markets, but it's like where you're exchanging ideas, so like marketplace of idea. But then
Yeah.
you also could be great at investing too, and that kind of markets. But and of course it explains it right here. Places where there are people coming together to work,
Hmm.
whether it's literal or virtual, we thrive in the activity of a group with a common direction.
Okay. That's
And
my
that's what
design.
I've noticed too with the myself, is like I can do a lot of, and of course you can too, as being like the hermit type, and that being within your chart, like we can have that time alone, we can focus on the self-love in our different ways and all of that, but I just feel like it unlocks a lot more when I'm interacting with people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I'm really taking away from this, and I'm glad that I've done it, is the whole self-help part of my journey when it came to going to Costa Rica and actually getting to know myself and actually spending time with myself and learning to love myself, because it seems like from what you explained on that other chart is everything else, and I think we've talked about this, if you don't love yourself, everything else isn't going to fall into place. Nothing will. It's just an
Mm-hmm.
erratic, chaotic mess if you can't have that relationship with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to see that there is this resurgence. I mean, maybe just surgence itself, but that's where the energy is heading right now. So many people getting into that self love, getting off of Instagram or other social media that constantly puts them in a place of feeling inadequate or unworthy.
Right.
And it's like I had to really sit and think about that towards the end of the last year. Of I'm not, you can look and compare yourself to so many people on, say, Instagram, but when you're out in the world, like, are these people that you're actually seeing, or are these more of a rarity? Because when I'm out in the
Yeah.
world, I'm seeing a lot more, average people.
Yeah.
And like it's you shouldn't be comparing yourself to the 0.05% of people look wise who represent 40% of people on Instagram who are big.
I agree with that. But I also think it's important to have a goal, and you have that goal for yourself, not for anybody else, of course. But it,
Hmm.
if you're able to utilize what you see on Instagram as a tool of motivation, and I think that's maybe the goal of half of influencers is for motivation, while the other half just want the clout. But if you're able to use those tools as motivation to get yourself to a place that shows you, hey, that actually is possible, I find it inspirational myself. But I completely understand what you say when people feel like maybe they're not good enough when they look at somebody else in comparison to who they are. It makes you feel very, very little, very small, compared to what is being portrayed online. And to be perfectly honest, when that camera goes off for that person, they've got just as many problems as that person that's envying that lifestyle, if not more. And definitely more stress and more pressure. 100%. Anytime that you carry that high of a following behind you, there's pressure. Always there's always going to be pressure of maybe the actions that you're doing when the camera's not on. Maybe someone will have a camera on you. These people are still going through different struggles. The struggles might be different, but they actually might be harder than what that person envies.
Yeah, and that's I mean, people who've even come forward after being Instagram, YouTube famous and all that. There's some of them can totally lose hold of their personality and who they are because they're always in front of a camera. There's people, fitness influencers that can get complete body dysmorphia. And I think that's more what I was starting to fall into. Finally, towards the end of last year, being in great shape and meeting all these goals that I had put out like the year and a half, 2 years prior,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden needing more, needing a new goal in that realm to get to. And then that's where I found myself getting a little bit like, oh, am I getting like body dysmorphia? Am I getting a bit extreme with my eating habits in order to fit this or that instead of just naturally flowing into it and not surrounding myself with people I was viewing as better looking than me or better
Yeah.
shape or
Right.
and that's where I feel bad. And when I will see, those people, that's the thing that I always remember is they can look like, oh, it's perfect for them, but this could be a person with extreme body dysmorphia. This could be a person that's taking steroids to look like that. There's so many things you don't see behind the curtain.
Yeah, and it's important to work out and eat healthy for your internal health more than your external health. The external health, the body is the byproduct of your healthy soul and your healthy body. And on the inside that is. So when you maybe are sticking to a strict meal diet, I think it's important to remind yourself. And again, it goes back to the reasons as to why you are pursuing that look. It's important to just continue to remind yourself you're doing this for your health. You're doing this for you. You want to live a longer life. You want to see your grandkids graduate. Maybe that's a goal that you have. That's a good goal to have. And along the way, what will meet that goal is remaining healthy, watching what you eat, and exercising. Doesn't mean you have to get to an enormous size, because honestly, getting to this enormous size, while it might be really fun for about 4 or 5 years, you're gonna look like shit when you're in your 50s and 60s if you don't keep it up. You'll get saggy. Have you seen Schwarzenegger's body with a shirt off?
Oh, not recently.
Fuck, it's bad. It's really bad.
uh,
So it's something to keep in mind also. I'm in the middle, and you know this, of really focusing a lot on cutting cutting fat and um, being healthy. And again, the byproduct of that is what my body's turning into, but it's still okay to be proud of it.
yeah, definitely. And there it's kind of going back a little bit to some of the stuff we mentioned. It's the holistic part of it,
Hmm.
like
Yeah, right.
I loved that I when I was cutting a lot of fat, the ways it made me look at food, the new relationship I got with food, psychologically, how different foods made me feel, and just like
Yeah,
cutting out all the toxins and all, and that's a journey that people should love so much. And then my problem was like I just went a little extreme with like I was just complete vegetarian. I believe in like phases of vegetarianism,
yeah.
but there were things that I was missing out on, and I was even doing it pretty. I was doing it really well and getting all my nutrients, but there's just something, and this is another a deeper human design chart would get into it too, is if whether or not you should be eating meat, because I think it is genetic. There are some people who do completely well and look great off of not eating meat, but I'm just not one of them, I guess, because I
Yeah,
could tell the negative consequences I was getting with my body, with my recovery in the
yep,
gym and all that.
right.
And all that. But yeah, just enjoying the whole journey and what your body tells you through the new ways you work out, the new ways you eat, and all that. Once I learned to lean into that, it was like that last little missing piece, kind of going back to what you're saying there, just loving all parts of it, and not like having that self-love when you look in the mirror too, and the
Yeah.
journey that you're on too, because so many people get so used to that journey. Once they get there, and this is myself included, they don't know what to do at that because they've been so focused on that journey.
I used to eat food and really anticipate with excitement the taste. But now I look at it as I really have excitement for how I'm going to feel after I eat that food. So the
Yeah.
transition from Flamin' Hot Cheetos at 9:30 at night in my bed while I'm watching TV to some grapes maybe I'm not getting that little high of these Cheetos, but I'm gonna wake up in the morning and my throat's not gonna burn from acid reflux, you know. And it's the same thing. Like I don't think I've said this on this show, and it's kind of disappointing. I'm saying it now. I fucking love Taco Bell, and it uh, it was another one of my addictions, especially before I went to Costa Rica. I mean, I think I was going there 4 or 5 times a week, and again, it's the idea of processed food. And now when I eat it, now that I've been on this health kick, I've had it twice since I've been back. Now when I eat it, I feel sick afterwards. And now I look at it and I'm thinking to myself, well, it does taste good. It doesn't make me feel good anymore. And that's the most important part is just feeling good. And I have this conversation with my mother a lot who deals with a lot of inflammation. It's like cut the bread, cut the pasta out of your diet. It can inflame your body so much. I haven't had a piece of bread, pizza, burger. I haven't had any of that for 8 weeks. And or no
That's awesome.
flour, none of that. It's sticking straight to chicken breast, some steaks, salads, broccoli, fruit, berries. If you're able to maintain those things, especially if you're trying to sculpt and lose weight, it seems for at least for me to be really effective.
Yeah, and it was the same for me. I went like keto for a
Okay.
bit, and then
Yeah.
I was keeping it really low on it. And then I went straight to kind of what you're talking about. Absolutely no bread, but I was okay on carbs, fruits, veggies,
Hmm.
and all that. Just keeping it out of the processed grain. And yeah, now after being on that so long and detoxing, I have reintroduced some grain, but definitely looking at where it's sourced, getting fresh baked bread, not
Yeah.
getting anything with the preservatives in it or that's going to have
Non-enriched.
the yeah, exactly.
It's a big one.
And but still not very much. And because if
Mhm.
I'm gonna have bread or grains, there's something I need to sacrifice that's gonna give me way more nutritionally than the bread or grains will. So it's even that it's like a treat for me probably once or twice a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so rough on your body. It's really like people say, empty calories.
Yeah. Definitely. Do you have anything else to say tonight, or should we wrap her up?
Yeah, I was gonna say we probably don't have time to talk about some of the stuff with Vans, but we'll be able to next time we talk about
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah. We'll
we'll
do
we'll
this
be able to
again.
kind of see some more stuff. Maybe it's meant that we're supposed to see some more stuff surrounding him occur, and then talk about it.
And to anybody that's still listening, what Raffi's talking about was I had texted him earlier today about the new pope that was selected, who happens to be an American. It's the first American pope in the history of the world. And I found it interesting that JD Vance had that meeting with the Pope 2 or 3 days before he passed away. And this urgent selection of a new Pope happens to be an American. A lot of it's very odd. And like you said, I think let's watch this play out for about a week because I actually, when you were talking, I just had a notification pop up on my Twitter of Pope Leo's dark past. So might be a really good topic for you and I to cover maybe early next week or something. We'll find a time, but I think it'll be a fun topic to cover and how JD Vance ties into it because I said this to you before we hit record. There is this magnet to him and the way he talks and how smooth he is, but there's also this, and you mentioned about in the 12th house, this mysteriousness to him that kind of lurks in the shadows. That's kind of the way it feels. And
And the way it connects to Trump's 12th house, and where Trump's enemies can come through on his chart. When you do a synastry chart on it, it's almost like Vance is going to have something to do with something happening to Trump, and then it gets into him taking power like we talked about.
I brought
uh
up, I know we talked about it last time, the assassination a little bit, but I had brought it up to somebody today. What if it was Vance that was behind the assassination attempt? Because Vance was already installed, just like Kamala was installed when Biden, as the vice president to run for president. You just You wonder, was it his own people?
Yeah,
It's
and it almost seems, it really almost seems like with the timing, with the whole idea of who was installed afterwards, the connection with Peter Thiel and
Mhm.
Palantir, the initiatives going on with AI. I mean, it's definitely stuff we'll lay out and talk about because that was an interesting thing that I was thinking about too. That I mean, Peter Thiel has backed Vance for such a long time, and
Yeah,
he's so manufactured in that way alone,
right.
which I find very interesting.
Yes. So, okay, Raffi. Well, thank you for sharing. Um, is it okay for me to say to you on while we're recording, if anybody else wants to get a reading from Raffi, are you willing to do that for a cost? Is that a service that you're going to be offering?
Yeah, I just I've been so busy here, but I've been picking up so many people out and about on errands. This week alone, it's been 3 or 4 people. I've ran into old friends or just had people come up to me when they overhear me talking about astrology with someone at places I stop
Yeah.
and things I'm doing. So it pushed me to actually finally make a page, which I'm going to work on a bit later today, an
Okay.
Instagram
Okay.
called Veiled Precision, veiled underscore precision.
Okay.
And so I'll be putting up a website there. And but even right now, someone can just reach out and send me a message on there as I get everything up and running. Just $30 for a reading, really, really long and in depth like this. But then also with any like card pulls that they may want to do.
Sure.
And there's even destiny cards. There's a lot more than just this I can add in, and it really just depends on people's time constraints and stuff.
Okay. That's
Uh,
wonderful.
but yeah, and I'll do it on Zoom. If someone lives out here in Las Vegas, I can come to them and do it in person.
Okay. I'll plug it in the video description.
Yeah, thanks. That means a lot. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you again, and we'll talk next week about the Pope.
All right, sounds good. See you then.